focused on telling voters that she cares about them and she has a plan.
Everybody, we're live
and over baiting Donald Trump.
We're talking about the debate,
about crowd sizes and court cases and Nancy Pelosi and Russiagate and grievance.
Yep.
And he took the bait almost every time, if not every time. He cited Fox hosts as fact checkers.
But while he's saying that, I just want to do one thing
as a
real quick.
Witness. It was like a 4chan post come to life.
Is that
he really took her bait almost every time. I just want to get this one. Mom,
what do you think of the debate?
I think she won.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Why do you think she won, Mom?
Because she really proved that he is just stupid.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, she actually proved that he is just not ready.
Yeah.
She proved that he is a detriment to this country.
And she did it so confidently, stood toe to toe, went over to shake his hand. Like some people didn't like that.
I want to hear what he said.
Okay. So anyway, here we go.
Against Trump. She started the debate. She began the debate approaching Donald Trump, shaking his hand at the podium, kind of forcing him to shake her hand, introducing herself. And from that moment on, Dana, she took the fight right to him.
You know, I'm just looking up. This is the quote that I think really sums up what Kamala Harris, her whole message was tonight. You're not running against Joe Biden. You're running against me. It was obviously
I like that one.
line, but it definitely explains how she triangulated. And she separated herself, obviously, from Donald Trump, and where she needed to from Joe Biden. And what was so fascinating is that she didn't do it on defense. She did it on offense. Really, in every turn, there are real weaknesses in the Biden-Harris administration, from the economy to immigration to Afghanistan. Just take Afghanistan for an example. Instead of talking about the disastrous, chaotic withdrawal, she turned it to the fact that he invited the Taliban to Camp David and
started talking about Abdul.
And exactly. And then you mentioned that she was baiting him. She baited him, and he took the bait every single time.
He sure did. Yeah.
She was also using the language that he usually uses. She kind of stole it from him.
Disgraced.
Weak.
Disgraceful.
Things like that really get to him.
Disgraceful.
The other thing that I just want to add is that she began to turn to who she is by saying, I'm not Joe Biden. I'm Donald Trump. I'm from a new generation, a different generation of leaders. And she clearly wanted people to understand what she's made of. For people who were really wanting to know all of her 17-point policy plans, they might be disappointed. But for people who want to know who she is and what she's made of, they got it tonight. Now,
that's
the
true.
voters are going to have to decide.
That's
absolutely true. It take them a while to digest it, and we don't want to suggest that we have any idea how this is going to play. But those are the observations for how she handled that, and the way that
she won because she showed up, Mom.
Did not handle it well.
She showed up.
It's pretty simple. I mean, she had a plan. She executed on that plan. The plan was to quite simply bait Donald Trump, to force him to battle on her turf at every turn. I mean, she talks about China. He starts defending his love for Xi Jinping. She talks about, she talks about his sexual assault cases. He starts defending himself on that turf. She wanted to do that, but I also think I did see her trying to kind of really lay the groundwork on the policy issues that the campaign thinks will matter, particularly in the state of Pennsylvania, right? The Commonwealth, of Pennsylvania. The very first answer that she gave was about her economic policy, where she talked about the $50,000 that they want to put out there for small business owners, that they would get in a tax refund.
Right.
I thought that was incredibly important, because they clearly know that there were a lot of things that they put out on economic policy. Not all of them were received well. That one was received well. And I also thought, there were other moments where she talks a lot about her family.
I think Trump also knew.
She talked about how she was raised. I mean, the plan was to not just introduce herself, but to introduce herself specifically to Pennsylvania voters, so that they understood on economic policy, on fracking, where she stood, and she executed that plan. Whereas Trump, I don't know what the plan was that he had.
Jake,
didn't think I was ever going to witness a debate as devastating as the one that you and Dana moderated back in June, where Joe Biden basically tanked his reelection campaign. I think tonight was just as devastating. I think that Kamala Harris pitched a shutout.
Yeah.
On almost every subject I can think of.
Yeah.
She shut Trump down on abortion. She shut Trump down on January 6th and democracy.
She did.
She shut him down on national security and turned to the former president and said, the military leaders who served with you think that you're a disgrace.
Mhm.
And then, as Dana mentioned, very powerfully at the end, made the point that she is the candidate of change. We need to turn the page from a decade of division and polarization. On substance, I think she pitched a shutout, and I think she did on style as well. I mean, the image of the debate to me is she's there, happy, smiling, expressive, shaking her head, in dismay at things Trump was saying. And Trump looked angry, scowling. She was looking directly at the audience. He was looking at the moderators and arguing with them. And something else.
And he was
Blaze says watching Trump, watching Kamala drip Trump to pieces.
Somebody said on my show on Saturday, she wins just by showing up. I didn't know that was going to be true. I think it was. She was the candidate of change just from the moment the two of them were on the stage.
Everything that she said.
Well, what you saw really was
under control.
Vice President Kamala Harris prosecuting this debate with surgical precision. She was aware, as she must have been as a prosecutor, that the second you were inside of a courtroom, the jury is looking at everything you're doing. Muted microphones, doesn't matter. Her nonverbal cues, her body language, her incredulous expressions, at one point putting her hand under her chin to demonstrate that she was completely baffled by his line of defense. Losing a battle of expert witnesses you're talking about national security advisors, talking about Nobel laureates, talking about the whole litany of people who do not buy what he's selling. Also very well trained and seasoned and knowing how to grapple with somebody who is going to possibly be bombastic, petulant, defensive, and have a derailed effort. She focused on all of those things. I saw somebody who, when she came out, allowed me to reintroduce myself. My name is Kamala Harris. On behalf of Kamala Harris, she came out with that in mind. I think she executed. Now, Donald Trump tried to derail her a number of times, but notice I'm saying the words Donald Trump in the way she did. It wasn't President Trump. She was referring to him as similar as you would in a courtroom. The defendant, the defendant, under his title, reminding you of what, how did she phrase it? What he left us with. It was a really dynamite performance.
So Anderson, I mean,
she showed up.
His lack of parrying, his lack of making Kamala Harris and the Biden-Harris record the focus. I mean, if you watched this debate and you didn't know that she was the incumbent vice president, you saw a debate where Donald Trump was really on defense, and he and his record were the subject of the debate, not the incumbent leader.
Kamala Harris did tonight what no governor, senator, politician, business person who has run against him in primaries in 2016, and certainly anything he faced in 2020, has figured out what no one else figured out how to do. Certainly Marco Rubio didn't figure it out by going after little hands. He debased himself, as many have. I want to show just some key moments where she
made him
Donald Trump on the most sort of obvious, basic things that we all know he has said, we all know are weak points, to devastating effect. Let's just take a look.
She eviscerated him.
Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. If you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him.
It was the moment she
Wow.
talked about his crowd size of all things, and people, not even for crowd size, it was people being bored and leaving his rallies early. I don't think he ever recovered from that. He triggered it. He started shouting, and he never stopped.
She triggered him. I think she triggered him. Not a bad answer, first answer in the economy, but not a great answer. She got her footing during the abortion conversation.
Right. Completely
she felt more comfortable. And then she triggered him with the people leave your rallies. And he lost it. And he was angry. From that moment on, his voice went up. He started angry. He told a lot of lies. Daniel Dale's going to be up all night because she started GoFundMe for his espresso machine. He did. And so what did she do? She triggered him on COVID. January 6th of democracy. Abortion. Chaos. Lies. And his anger. What are those? Those are the issues that turned the American suburbs away from Donald Trump.
And don't forget Ukraine. She actually bounced back.
Those are the voters who were waiting to see if she could stand there and be a plausible president next to him.
Right.
She cleared that bar. That doesn't mean she won their votes, but she cleared that bar with 8 weeks left in the election.
That's what I'm talking about.
She stood next to a former president.
People can now see her as president.
Her own. And on many of the issues,
standing, go to the show with a former president.
She triggered him into his lies and into his anger, which does not sell well with the middle of the electorate that will decide things 8 weeks from tonight.
You know, I've been involved in a lot of these. I helped prepare a candidate for these debates, 6 of them, and I've been watching them since I was a little boy. I've scarcely seen a one like this, in the degree to which she dominated this. And, you know, part of it was butt kicking, and part of it was kind of someone doing themselves. And you said earlier, jokingly,
she's a trained prosecutor and a shark.
He said Muhammad Ali in the debates that, you know, their fear has to be that he knocks himself out. He kind of helped, but she set him up, as John said.
He's right.
But these things are more than about issues. These things are tests. These campaigns, these debates, they're oral exams for the hardest job on the planet. And people judge you in these moments, and they judge whether you have the mettle to stand up to that pressure, to be coherent, to deliver a case. And she certainly did that tonight.
Man, she whooped him.
Yeah,
she just whooped him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that there's been a desire, you know, in good fiction, there's like wish fulfillment. Like, you know, you watch a movie because you want something to happen, like some great romance. People have wanted to see somebody put this bully in his place. And people have watched contender after contender fail to put him in his place. She got up there and she put him in his place. She baited him, and then she spanked him. She baited him, and then she spanked him. And not only did she pass the commander-in-chief test, he failed it.
Yeah,
he did. Do you want this guy dealing with a dictator? When he can literally just be, I mean, if you could see the punches coming, he couldn't get out of the way. I mean, you can hurt somebody by saying people leave your rally. Any world leader can manipulate you into anything. So I think that she passed the test. He failed it. But I think also she was speaking for the people. She really was speaking for
Kamala Harris for the people.
I think the right wing may not see it, but she kept coming back to a middle class background. He kept talking about himself and himself. He went down every rabbit hole imaginable. Kamala Harris did something great for every parent in America. She put the bully in his place.
Yeah.
You know, I can add more to what you guys have said using political terms such as butt whooping. But Harris hacked Donald Trump tonight, and we talked earlier, I mentioned, you know, being unconventional, which he has been all these years, doesn't mean he's unpredictable. And it turned out she could use the Mad Libs of triggers of everything he's ever talked about or been bothered by, and use them in a formula that was to first talk about an attack line he might have said to her, take a topic she was weak on, and follow it up with a trigger for him, and then watch him spin himself in circles trying to defend it. And at the start of this conversation, at the start of the night, we talked about who's going to look like an incumbent versus who's going to look like a challenger. And I think she made herself look like the challenger to a person and really kind of ran through his record.
I mean, you know him well. I mean, even on the immigration question, she quickly turned it and totally emasculated him and got him discombobulated.
She dismantled him and made it that on the issues he should be the strongest on, border security, the economy. He ended up relitigating his rallies and talking about his crowd sizes. I mean, she put the bait out there and he took it. And I'm hearing from Republicans, because I'm trying to think from the perspective of, okay, if you're a Trump viewer at home, what are you thinking? sitting Republican lawmakers who objectively think she won the debate, but also that the mask is starting to slip with Donald Trump. That this is the man who projects himself as strong, as in command. And in fact, he simply is not, with just a minor challenging, asking for more substantive questions, asking him to lay out a healthcare plan, basic things. He just can't do it. Certainly not the way he could have in previous years.
To the healthcare point, I think the moderators did a very good job in the idea that, you were president for 4 years. Now it's been 3.5 years with Joe Biden. You ran for president a couple of years before you were president. And Donald Trump said the best he could do about the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare has some concept and some ideas.
Yeah, concept of a plan. Concept of a plan.
For the Democrats in the first 2 years when it was being implemented, because the change hadn't been fulfilled yet, and change is scary when it comes to something so personal like your health care. It's one of the most popular issues in the country right now, and it's been a huge boon for Democrats. And again, I'm going back to, if you're a Trump voter, I'm getting in coming from some of the Trump voters I've met in my travels, and they're defending him. But the Republican strategists, they're not surprised because they know Donald Trump. They know he takes the bait, but they're really disappointed that he didn't have answers on substantive policy questions, to your point about immigration, that on what should be his issue, he took the bait and was talking about conspiracy theories and other things. And on policy proposals that matter to the people who will settle the election, he had nothing to say.
I think
she showed up as herself. She is a prosecutor. She can prosecute the case. She is not afraid to hold people accountable. That is how she started her career, and she did just that. And she laid some breadcrumbs in her opening statement talking about, you're going to hear a lot of lies. And every time she tripped him up a little bit, she didn't then try and respond to him. She just said, see what I told you. I told you what you were going to get. I'm keeping them honest. She also helped turn the page when she said, you're not running against Joe Biden. That was a subtle reminder for Americans for the last 2 years that said they didn't want that rematch. And the last time they watched the debate, it was a rematch. And she was like, guess what, folks? I'm here. Here's an alternative. Here's a path to the future. And the final thing is that I'm texting with some folks who are doing Dow testing, focus groups during this debate. Undecided voters in Georgia. First, the gender gap is massive. It's about a 20, 30-point gender gap on her responses. But one of Trump's worst answers was his response to COVID. And that was really when he started to unspiral and unravel, and he couldn't get back on track. I mean, say what you want, friends, but she nailed it tonight.
Okay. Yeah, she nailed it. Yeah.
Now for the other side.
Totally nailed it.
The other America.
Totally nailed it.
Right? The red America. Yeah. So, John, I agree that she passed the test. Does she look presidential? Did she do a good job up there? She did pass that test. But she was very light. You're complaining about Trump saying you don't have details on your plan. No details provided on anything here. But for her, she was very good at kind of rattling off her 2-minute answers, but then never really answered the questions. I think Red America will look at this and say, I see it in the tweets. I never thought I'd say this, but CNN did such a great job on the debate and being fair, where ABC was not fair. This was a 3-on-1 at times versus Trump. They were debating Trump be very specific on answers. Kamala Harris was asked about her values changing and having to articulate the differences of why she was for reparations, not for reparations. She said, they listed a very long list, and she said, I'll get to each of those. And then she didn't get to any of them.
I would be curious to see the time, who had more time, because my sense was that Donald Trump was given more time. I don't know.
But I'm just saying, my point is not time. My point is there was not a demand. David Muir didn't say, well, Madam Vice President, are you going to answer that question? Where he did do that with Trump. There was more aggressive follow-ups on the Trump questioning than there was on...
Isn't that sort of the responsibility of the candidate?
I think that's Rob is right. The candidate has to take control. Because when Trump wanted to do that, he did. Or when he felt like he needed to.
I think it was 2 very specific questions, like yes or no. Is there anything you regret about January 6th? No answer.
Well, then how about this? When she was pressed, and I thought this was particularly disgusting for me. When she was pressed on Afghanistan, she didn't say, yeah, I regret that 13 young men and women died there. And I regret that I did not, in the 3.5 years as vice president, meet with their families. She didn't say that. And nobody followed up on that.
Well, she's not going to say that. You want to lose a race, you say that. You want to win a race, you figure out something else.
Republicans about, this wasn't a debate, it was a trial, and there were 3 prosecutors. I'm definitely going to hear that. But it is a little hard to complain about the refs when you're not making your own jump shots.
Exactly.
And the first 15 minutes of this debate, he won. The questions were on the economy. He had it right. He had it right on inflation. Even on the tariff question, I think he had it right. And then
he fell off
inexplicably on immigration. That's where she derailed him. And from that point forward, she basically dictated the flow. Now, in the closing statements, when he says that for 3.5 years,
that's when you know we won.
Why haven't you done it? That really should have permeated. That's his best argument. It really should have permeated everything. She peppered all of her answers with, I have a plan, I have a plan. He should have retorted every time, you've been there 3.5 years.
That seems like the only thing they worked out in advance, like that he had sort of in his mind, okay, this is something we're going to say.
But look, she did not put a lot of meat on the bones. I agree she passed the competency test. She did tell some of her own lies, and she left some things out there. But overall, she dictated the flow.
I want to go to Caleb Collins in the debate spin room with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Caleb.
Yeah, thanks, Anderson.
Governor Shapiro.
And it is timely given we are talking with the Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro about how Taylor Swift just came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. I know that you were claiming Taylor Swift is one of Pennsylvania.
Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris.
But we're here in Philadelphia watching
Taylor
this
Swift.
debate. You were just watching because there were many big questions about how she would fare on that debate stage.
You know, Caitlin, I think we spoke a few weeks ago, and I expressed to you that I was a little bit worried the American people had a little bit of brain fog about Donald Trump. They didn't remember the chaos when he was in office. I think Kamala Harris wiped out that brain fog and reminded people of the chaos of Donald Trump, reminded them that he ripped away people's fundamental freedoms, particularly the freedom for millions of women across this country to just make decisions over their own bodies. She reminded them that here in Pennsylvania, he wants to take away health care from 1.2 million of my fellow Pennsylvanians. She reminded him that he really has no plan on the economy, and she reminded people just how nonsensical he is, how divisive he is, how his rhetoric seeks to create others in our society and divide people instead of lifting everybody up. And I thought she made clear she wants to be a president for all Americans, laid out her vision, laid out her plans, and I thought she had a great night.
A lot of it seemed designed to try to get under Trump's skin. I mean, she was talking about his crown sizes. She was talking about his former officials who are now criticizing him. She brought up January 6th and all of these moments. And he did seem to take the bait. Even Trump advisors were saying that to me. Was that the strategy going into this debate for your party?
Look, only Kamala Harris knows what her strategy was on this, but I will tell you, he took the bait because he's completely self-centered. He only cares about himself. And so instead of just ignoring a comment about crowd size, instead focusing on the needs of the crowd, the needs of the people that he was talking to, he could only focus on himself. He is someone who is so self-absorbed that he can't possibly do a good job for the American people.
She's still been underwater in latest polling in your home state. I mean, she's been doing better in Michigan and Wisconsin than she has in Pennsylvania, but still struggling a bit. And what we saw from polls that voters wanted to know more about her. They still had questions about her. Yeah. Obviously, Donald Trump is a pretty well-known quantity. She obviously made the case against Donald Trump tonight, but do you think she laid out enough of her own plans in detail, for example, on how to end the war that's happening in Gaza? She talked about working around the clock, but no specifics on that.
Look, I thought she laid out comprehensive plans both on domestic and international policy, and every visit, every rally, everything she does going forward, she'll continue to flesh that out. I thought she had a really good night, and I thought she laid out what she needed to for the American people. Understand this is one piece of the larger effort to win, not just here in Pennsylvania, but in other states as well. And I thought she had a good night. As for Pennsylvania, look, understand, it's always close here. 2016, it was 44,000 votes that divided the two candidates. 2020 was 80,000 votes. About a percentage point or less. I don't know, but we're no stranger to close elections. The good news is Kamala Harris understands that to pick up that last yard or two here in Pennsylvania is tough, but you got to show up. This is still a retail state. And so she's showing up to places like Beaver County. This week, she'll be in Wilkes-Barre. She's going to places that, quite frankly, often get ignored by national candidates. By showing up, she's not only able to lay out her plans, but she shows a level of respect to the good people of Pennsylvania.
Governor Josh Shapiro, I want to hand it over to Jake, who also has a question for you, your fellow Pennsylvanian.
Who knows Taylor Swift?
Hey, everybody, if you're watching this, Taylor Swift officially endorsed Kamala Harris after this debate. And they said that on CNN. I'm going to see if it comes up on Twitter here. Hold on a second.
Oh, he's not hearing. Okay. Go ask him this. Should the Harris campaign focus?
Okay.
Should the Harris campaign focus more on the independent voters in Erie or the Republican women in the collar counties around Philly?
Right here.
If they had to choose.
And Taylor Swift
I believe
just endorsed Kamala Harris. Really bad night for old man
focus
Trump.
more on independent women in Erie or
Here it is.
On moderate women voters in the other surrounding
Could
counties.
this night get any better? Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris.
Now, on independent voters in the Erie
Taylor
area,
Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris.
women.
That's that, man. Yep.
Or Republican women.
Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris. She did so on Instagram.
Look, Jake, I'll tell you.
So let's go to her
particularly if this election's going to
Instagram.
come down to just
Go to her
tens of
Instagram
thousands of
account and
votes.
hear
I
what
think
she
you
has to
understand
say.
that.
I'll read it
David
out
Urban
to
on
you.
your panel certainly understands
This
that.
is really
There are a whole lot
Taylor
of
Swift
people
just set the
in the
internet on
Philadelphia
fire.
suburbs. If you look at the suburbs as sort of its own entity, it's more than 2 times the size of the city of Philadelphia. So there's a lot of voters there, a lot of people to talk to, and I know that the vice president's going to be spending a lot of time in the Philadelphia suburbs. I also know that going to Erie is important as well. Take that from me, a governor who's been there many times. I think our soon-to-be vice president Tim Walz was in Erie just last week. That's critical as well. But you got to show up. You got to let folks ask you questions.
12 minutes ago,
tires get kicked.
Taylor Swift posted this 12 minutes ago, Mom.
You care about their neighborhoods. And I know Kamala Harris is going to do that.
I'm going to just put this down just for a second. This is really important. Taylor Swift wrote 12 minutes ago, posted on Instagram. Like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now is a great time to do your research on the issues at hand and the stances these candidates take on the topics that matter to you the most. As a voter, I make sure to watch and read everything I can about their proposed policies and plans for this country. Recently, I was made aware that AI of me falsely endorsing Donald Trump as presidential run was posted to his site. It really conjured up my fears around AI, artificial intelligence, and the dangers of spreading misinformation. It brought me to the conclusion that I needed to be very transparent about my actual plans for this election as a voter. The simplest way to combat misinformation is with the truth. I'll be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I am voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she is a steady-handed, gifted teacher, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by the calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. I've done my research and I made my choice. Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make. I also want to say, especially to first-time voters, remember that in order to vote, you have to be registered. I also find it much easier to vote early. I'll link where to register and find early voting dates and info in my story. With love and hugs and hope. With love and hope, Taylor Swift, childless cat lady. That was amazing and historic, and excuse me for getting choked up, but couldn't help it. So, anyway, subscribe to Zennie62 on YouTube, and I'll be back later to talk more about this. I'm going to go back to my other live stream where my eyes are red. All right, thanks everybody. See you.
That was good, Zennie.
Phew.
Put that back on so I can hear it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, everybody. Yeah. So, at any rate, that's the news as I posted on a separate video here. Zennie62 YouTube. Kamala Harris officially endorses Donald Trump because one of the things was someone made an AI video of her version, a fake version, and posted on the Trump Truth Social. Okay. And Van Jones just texted me a like that I wrote, clobbered him. So let's turn this up. All right.
Governor Shapiro.
Okay, so Taylor Swift on Instagram endorsed the Harris Walls ticket. She says she's doing it because Harris, quote, fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she is steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we're led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who's been standing up for LGBTQ plus rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. She goes on to say, I've done my research, I've made my choice, your research is all yours to do. Interestingly, she signs it with love and hope, Taylor Swift, childless, cat lady, an allusion to Senator J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's running mate, insulting Democrats as childless cat ladies.
And she was holding a cat in that photo.
The name of the cat, I've been reliably informed, is Olivia Benson.
Well, one of her cats was Olivia Benson. I cannot confirm that the cat she was holding in that picture is Olivia Benson. But I guarantee you, we will hear from many Swifties out there. But let's just talk about what this means.
Huge.
What does it mean? What is the significance of a celebrity endorsement?
It's not just a celebrity endorsement.
One of the biggest celebrities in the word.
The biggest celebrity in the world. But it's not just that she's a celebrity. She has people who are, like Swiftologists. There are people who are young people, young women, who might not already be engaged in politics, who read and listen to every single thing that she says and love her. And if she makes a difference, even on the margins, in a race like this, that is a huge difference. This was the endorsement that the Harris campaign, they were hoping for more than anything else.
No one will ever say no to a Taylor Swift endorsement. I 100% agree with that. I think it's significant to all. It is always significant to have the most powerful force in pop culture on your side. The one contrarian view I will say is that in this moment, the thing the Harris campaign needs perhaps the most is to figure out how to reach men. They've got to figure it out here in Pennsylvania. They've got to figure out how to reach black men. And I'm not sure Taylor Swift helps them with that. It's a totally different ballgame that Taylor Swift is in, but they've got to figure that part out.
Travis Kelce, on the other hand.
Maybe if Travis Kelce comes around,
NFL, come on.
Having a different conversation. But I think that it's just important to remember that, especially in this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that is just, it's a give and take here, where you gain some and you lose some, and she really needs to start gaining.
I don't want to rush us off the Taylor Swiftology discussion, but I do want to. There was another piece of news, which is that the Harris campaign put out a release and has challenged Donald Trump to another debate. That had been somewhat in doubt, and they say, we're ready for another debate. Let's have it. My guess is after the vice presidential debate in October, but they're ready for round two.
So CBS is doing the vice presidential debate, and I think NBC is supposed to do the next presidential debate.
As lockdown confirmed, but that is
put an offer on the
expectation.
Well, can I just correct something before we move on fully from Taylor Swift?
Oh boy.
The cat's name is Benjamin Button.
Okay.
Oh, Benjamin Button.
Can I just say one thing that I saw when I talked about Taylor Swift's endorsement? That she is very clearly showing people that reproductive rights is on the ballot, very much so. She talked about, in that actual statement, about her research about Tim Walz, the governor, and his work with this particular area. And so for those who think that Roe v. Wade is an invisible ink on the 2024 ballot, it very much is in a Sharpie pen. And that's why Kamala Harris's dissection of her references to what voter would want was so important in the reproductive rights conversation.
Let's get a fact check now of the debate. CNN senior reporter Daniel Dale was listening closely to both candidates. Daniel, what stood out to you?
Jake, what stood out was that this was a staggeringly dishonest debate performance from former President Trump. Just lie after lie on subject after subject. By my preliminary count, Jake, Trump made at least 33 false claims. 33. By contrast, by, again, a preliminary count, Vice President Harris made at least one false claim, though she added at least a few misleading claims and a few more that lack key context. I think a lot of Americans say, well, all politicians lie. No major presidential candidate before Donald Trump has ever lied with this kind of frequency. A remarkably large chunk of what he said tonight was just not true. And this wasn't like little exaggeration, political spin. A lot of his false claims were untethered to reality. On abortion, saying every Democrat wanted Roe v. Wade overturned, though actually more than 80% of Democrats supported Roe. On crime, saying it's through the roof, though it's actually sharply down since early 2023. It's now lower than it was since Trump left office. On healthcare, saying he's the one who saved Obamacare, the law he actually repeatedly tried to overturn. On Kamala Harris herself, saying that a Howard University grad, Black Law Students Association president, had claimed that she wasn't Black at one point. Frankly, I don't have enough time here to run through each specific Trump false claim. I urge people to go to our CNN website or our app to read our team's detailed fact checks on this and a whole bunch more. For now, though, let's dive into one false claim Trump made, an egregious claim about migrants supposedly eating people's pets.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
This is not only false.
By the way, if you haven't seen the Taylor Swift,
for people who have not been online in the last couple of days, this claim about migrants, Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, eating originated with a Facebook post that claimed to a neighbor's friend's daughter. So, a third-hand broken telephone kind of thing. The city of Springfield and the Springfield police say there are no credible reports of this happening. And even J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate who himself had promoted these claims, acknowledged this morning that the, quote, rumors might turn out false, although he still encouraged people to spread these cat memes. Now, I'll note that Trump himself added dogs to the equation. They had not even been part of these viral nonsense rumors before. Now let's look at one false claim that Vice President Harris did make about the economic situation that the Biden-Harris administration was left by Trump.
Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
So the Biden-Harris administration was not actually left the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. They were left a 6.4% unemployment rate in January 2021. That was certainly elevated by recent standards, pretty high, but it was significantly down from the 14.8% level it reached early in the pandemic. So it was already
almost 30 minutes,
at the time the Biden-Harris
got 1
administration
million
took office. And that 6.4% level was the highest since the Great Recession. So in the last 20 years, not going back decades further. Anderson?
Daniel, thanks very much. A lot to go through. We appreciate it. One other thing on the Taylor Swift endorsements, interesting, in her statement, another thing she mentioned, she said, recently I was made aware that AI falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to his site. It really conjured up my fears around AI and the danger of spreading misinformation. It brought me to the conclusion that I need to be very transparent about my actual plans for this election as a voter. Interesting that she's citing Donald Trump or somebody in the campaign, or I don't know where that site was, but it's a Trump-related.
This is another self-owned. I mean, they were really dumb to bait her because she was standing on the sidelines. We were hoping she might come out, but they keep doing dumb stuff on this campaign. This stuff around eating animals and cats is pissing everybody off. They just pulled Taylor Swift into the fight. This is a very, very disastrous night for Donald Trump.
Can I give a quick shout out to J.D. Vance, who introduced into the bloodstream the childless cat lady?
Yes.
That now one of the most powerful celebrities on the planet is using to endorse against Trump and Vance. He also was the potential future vice president who tweeted out this lie about immigrants eating pets, which was now echoed on a debate stage tonight. This guy has been a disaster from the outset. I'm biased. I worked for Mike Pence, but he brought people into the fold. This person runs people out of the fold, and he is steering Donald Trump to his absolute worst instincts, which Kamala Harris was able to exploit every single time.
Did you say he was guilty of a feline eat?
I just want to know. So Daniel Dale was giving some fact check, and I just want to fact check a little bit here. It's not necessarily 100% cross the line. When Kamala Harris said that there are men and women serving in war zones, in this administration. Let's not forget, tonight isn't every night. There are young men and women from America serving in harm's way. They may not be in active war zones, but there are men and women serving in harm's way all around this globe, protecting all of us here at this table. So let's all keep them in our prayers tonight and remember that. They may not be in war zones, but they're still in harm's way, and their parents and loved ones are very concerned about it. And let's not diminish it anyway.
You know, I think that debate, I mean, there were so many moments. It took a very strong pivot in a direction towards.
Sorry, Kamala Harris is speaking. Let's listen.
But we have 56 days to go, and guys, we're still the underdogs in this race. It's tight. We've got to win Pennsylvania. And we are going to win Pennsylvania. And it is because of you. It is because of you who have signed up, who have volunteered. You are organizing. You're helping us to email and text and knock on doors and talk to your neighbors and your friends. And here's the thing about the spirit of our campaign. It is people-driven.
I'm back here now with the team. Stay with us for a reaction to the debate. We're going to hear from our focus group of Pennsylvania voters. We'll also get the first results from our two citizen poll debate viewers across the country. Plus, Donald Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, will join us live back in the
Wow, folks, something else.
Debate night in America. He's brought to you by Simply Safe.
I don't know what you think, but I think she's got it, folks. That sealed the deal. Sealed the deal. So,
advanced security sensors and cameras
on an amazing and historic night, I want to hear what the other side is going to say here. But Taylor Swift, how about that?
No safe like Simply Safe. Take control of your
Game
health
over.
by
Oh
boosting your
boy.
force field, the immune system, with the
Oh
Aura
man,
Ring.
amazing
Listen
news.
to your body's signals and raise your
Kamala
defenses.
Harris,
Aura tells you
after
your
this
temperature
debate,
is higher than normal,
and
how to
they
improve
said that
your
on
sleep,
CNN.
or if your
I'm
heart
going to
rate
see if it
shows
comes
signs
up
of
on
stress,
Twitter here.
so you can
Hold on a
decide to
second.
push yourself or to lie low. Live smarter, stronger, healthier.
Actually,
with
folks,
the Aura Ring.
we've been on for 41 minutes. I'm gonna stop it right here because I think this says it all. And of course, I have more videos about this later tonight and tomorrow. Subscribe to Zennie62 on YouTube. Thanks for joining me, and make sure you get out and vote, folks. Make sure you get out and vote. That ends the stream.